The day my father looked me in the eyes and said, "From this moment on, you are no longer our daughter," I lost my entire family in less than 5 minutes. 10 years later, the same mother who never called, never apologized, and never cared, appeared on my doorstep with a demand so unbelievable that I almost laughed before I realized she was completely serious. There are moments in life when betrayal doesn't arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It arrives in silence, a phone that never rings, a message that never comes, an invitation that everyone receives except you. That was how I learned my family no longer considered me part of theirs. My name is Daniel Parker. I was 34 years old the Christmas my family erased me. At least that's what they thought they were doing. If you'd asked me 6 months earlier whether my family would ever betray me, I would have laughed. We weren't perfect. Far from it. Like most families, we had arguments. My older sister Rachel thought she was always right. My younger brother Eric believed every inconvenience in his life was somehow someone else's fault. My mother, Linda, spent most of her life trying to control every person in every room. But despite all that, we were family, or at least I thought we were. The center of our family had always been my grandmother, Eleanor Parker. Grandma Ellie. She was the glue that held everyone together. Every Christmas happened in her beautiful Victorian house on Maple Street. Every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every family reunion. The house itself almost felt alive. It sat on top of a small hill overlooking the town. 3 stories, white exterior, dark green shutters, wrap-around porch. The kind of house that looked like it belonged in a Christmas movie. As kids, Rachel, Eric, and I spent entire summers there. Grandma would bake cinnamon rolls every Sunday morning. She taught us how to play cards, how to plant tomatoes, how to treat people with kindness. When Grandpa died, she stayed in that house alone for nearly 20 years, refusing every suggestion to move. People don't leave homes, she'd always say. They leave memories. Then, 2 years ago, she passed away. The entire family changed after that, not immediately, but gradually, like a crack spreading through glass. At first, everyone pretended things were normal. Then came the discussions about the house, the arguments, the disagreements, the whispers, and eventually, the secrets. The first warning sign arrived 3 days before Christmas. I was sitting in my apartment finishing paperwork when my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, short dot called unusual. "Hey, Mom wanted me to tell you Christmas is going to be very small this year. Just immediate family. Hope you understand." I read it 3 times, then 4, then 5. None of it made sense. I called immediately. Rachel answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, what does this mean? What does what mean?" The text. Silence. I could hear television in the background. People talking, laughing. She knew exactly what I meant. "It's just a small gathering. I'm your brother." Another silence. Longer this time. Finally she sighed. "Daniel." "Yeah." "It's complicated." I sat back in my chair. Complicated. The favorite word of people doing something wrong. Then explain it. I can't. "Why?" Mom asked me not to. That answer sent a strange chill through my body. Because Rachel never listened to anyone, not even Mom. Yet somehow she was following orders now. "What's going on?" "Nothing. You're lying." "I have to go." The line disconnected. I stared at my phone. Something wasn't right. Not even close. The next day I called my mother. She sounded strangely cheerful. "Hi, sweetheart." Sweetheart. Another warning sign. My mother only used sweetheart when she wanted something. Rachel said, "Christmas is immediate family only." That's right. I am immediate family. A pause. Then, "We're just trying something different this year." Different how? Smaller. Who will be there? Another pause. Too long. Then she answered, Rachel and her husband. Okay. Eric and Melissa. Okay. Aunt Susan. Okay. I frowned. Mom. What? That's literally everyone. Silence. Then. I don't want to argue. I just want an answer. Daniel, please. My stomach tightened. People only beg when they're hiding something. What aren't you telling me? Nothing. Mom. I have another call. Click. Gone. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying every conversation, every pause, every strange answer, every lie, because they were lies. I knew it. The problem was I didn't know why, and that uncertainty felt worse than the exclusion itself. Around midnight, I opened social media. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe there was some reasonable explanation. Then I saw a photo. Rachel had accidentally uploaded it. A picture taken earlier that evening. At Grandma's house, the entire family standing in the living room, smiling, holding wine glasses. Behind them sat a stack of folders and documents on the dining room table. My heart started pounding. Why were they meeting there? And why was I the only person missing? The next morning I drove past Maple Street. I wasn't planning to stop. I just wanted to see the house. Maybe calm my imagination. Instead, my anxiety doubled because there were 3 unfamiliar cars parked outside. A black SUV, a white sedan, a silver truck, business vehicles. Not family. I pulled over across the street, watched. 10 minutes later, the front door opened. A man in a suit walked outside. Then another. Then Rachel. They were carrying folders, documents, contracts. My pulse quickened. They shook hands, smiled. The men left. Rachel returned inside. I sat frozen. Something was happening. Something involving the house. And they were intentionally hiding it from me. That afternoon, I called Eric. Unlike Rachel and Mom, he answered immediately. Hey, what happened at Grandma's house today? Silence. Then, what do you mean? Don't. What? Don't lie. Another silence. Then a sigh. Danny. The fact he used my childhood nickname immediately made me suspicious. He only did that when he wanted me calm. What happened? I can't talk about it. There it was. Confirmation. Something was happening. Something important. Why? I promised Mom. I laughed. A cold laugh. Interesting. What? All of you suddenly keeping secrets. No one's keeping secrets. Then tell me. Silence. Again. Every conversation ended the same way. Because they all knew something. And none of them wanted me to know. Finally, Eric spoke. You should just let it go. That sentence changed everything. Because innocent people never say that. For the next week, nobody contacted me. No calls, no texts, nothing. Christmas came and went. For the first time in my entire life, I spent it alone. I ordered takeout, watched television, tried not to think about the fact that my entire family was together without me. The loneliness hurt, but the confusion hurt more. Why? That single question consumed me. Why exclude me? Why lie? Why hide? What was so important that they would risk destroying our family? I didn't know, but I was about to find out, because 2 days after Christmas, Rachel made a mistake, a very expensive mistake. December 27th, 10:42 a.m. I was working from home when a notification appeared on my laptop. An email from Rachel. The subject line instantly caught my attention. I stared at the screen. My blood ran cold. Then I opened it. The attachment loaded. Page after page. Legal documents, property disclosures, sales agreements, closing dates, financial terms. I couldn't breathe. They were selling Grandma's house, and judging by the signatures, negotiations had been happening for weeks, maybe months, without telling me, without involving me, without even informing me. I read every page, then one detail stopped me, the expected closing date. January 10th. Less than 2 weeks away. This wasn't a discussion. This wasn't a proposal. The sale was practically complete. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. Rachel answered immediately, almost as if she'd been expecting my call. "You sent me something." Silence. Then, "What?" "The purchase agreement." Another silence. Long enough for panic to become obvious. Then, suddenly, oh my God. She knew. She had sent it by accident. The document had been intended for someone else. Not me. Rachel. No answer. Rachel. The line disconnected. I immediately called back. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Blocked. I sat staring at the wall. Heart racing. Mind spinning. The pieces were finally starting to fit together. Christmas. The exclusion. The lies. The secrecy. The meetings. The documents. They hadn't excluded me because they didn't want me there. They excluded me because they didn't want me asking questions. And now I needed answers. Real answers. So I did something none of them expected. I drove directly to the county records office. Because one detail in those documents bothered me. A very specific detail. The ownership section. The sellers listed were Linda Parker, Rachel Parker, Eric Parker. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. And a memory from 12 years earlier kept replaying inside my head. A memory involving Grandma, a lawyer, a stack of papers, and a signature. A signature I had almost forgotten. By the time I walked into the records office, I had no idea that my entire life was about to change. Or that within the next 10 minutes, I would discover a secret, capable of destroying every plan my family had made. The clerk smiled politely. "Can I help you?" I swallowed. "Yes." My voice felt strangely shaky. "I need a copy of the deed for 214 Maple Street." The clerk nodded, turned toward her computer, typed for several seconds. Then her expression changed, very slightly, but enough for me to notice. She looked back at me, then at the screen again, then back at me. "Sir." "Yes." "There appears to be something unusual here." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" The clerk slowly rotated the monitor toward me. I looked down, and the moment I saw the names on that deed, the entire world stopped. Because sitting beside my grandmother's name was mine, and what I read next changed everything. For several seconds, I couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't even think. The county clerk's monitor glowed in front of me. One line, one sentence, one forgotten legal detail, and suddenly nothing made sense anymore. My name, my actual name, not a typo, not a mistake, Daniel James Parker. I leaned closer. The document had been recorded 12 years earlier, the exact year Grandma refinanced the property, the exact day that memory had happened. The attorney, the closing table, the stack of papers, the signature. Everything came rushing back. The clerk cleared her throat. "Sir?" I looked up. "Can I get a certified copy?" "Of course." My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. 5 minutes later, I walked out of the building carrying a manila envelope. Inside it was proof. Proof that my entire family had either forgotten something massive or deliberately ignored it. Either possibility was terrifying, because if the deed was valid, and it certainly appeared to be, then ownership of Grandma's house had transferred automatically when she died. Not to Mom, not to Rachel, not to Eric, to me, the sole surviving joint tenant. which meant one thing. The people trying to sell the house didn't actually own it. I barely made it to my car before my phone exploded. Mom, dog calling. I stared at the screen, ignored it. 2 seconds later, Rachel, ignored. Then Eric, ignored. Back to Mom, again and again and again. The title company had clearly contacted them, and now panic was setting in. I let the phone ring for almost an hour, then finally answered. Hello? My mother sounded breathless. Daniel, not sweetheart, not honey, just Daniel. The formal voice, the nervous voice, the voice she used when things weren't going her way. You went to the records office. Not a question, a statement. I smiled. Interesting. What? You suddenly know where I've been. Silence. Then, we need to talk. We did talk. Daniel. No. I asked questions. You lied. That's not fair. I laughed. A bitter laugh. Really? Things got complicated. There it is again. What? Complicated. The word seemed to make her uncomfortable. Good. She deserved uncomfortable. For the first time in weeks, I wanted her to feel exactly what she'd made me feel. Confused, excluded, alone. Why didn't you tell me? We thought. You thought what? Silence. Then, we thought the deed wasn't valid. I nearly dropped the phone because that wasn't denial. That wasn't surprise. That was admission. They knew, at least on some level. They knew my name was there, and they moved forward anyway. How long? Another pause. Too long, then. Since after your grandmother died. I closed my eyes. There it was, the truth. They hadn't forgotten. Not entirely. They had simply convinced themselves it wouldn't matter, or hoped I would never find out. Neither answer made me feel better. The next morning, Mom asked me to come to her house for a family meeting. The phrase alone made me sick. Family meeting. Funny how they wanted family involvement now. I almost refused. Almost. But curiosity won. 3 hours later, I walked through Mom's front door. The atmosphere felt strange immediately. Heavy, tense, like everyone was waiting for a bomb to explode. Rachel sat on the couch, arms crossed, eyes red. Eric paced near the window. His wife, Melissa, stared at the floor, and Mom sat at the dining table, trying desperately to look calm. Nobody spoke at first. Finally, I pulled out the certified copy of the deed, placed it on the table. The room froze. There it was, the document nobody wanted to discuss. The elephant in the room, the reason Christmas had disappeared, the reason I was standing there. Mom looked away first. Rachel followed. Eric kept staring at it, like maybe the words would magically vanish. They didn't. I sat down. Let's start with a simple question. Nobody answered. Whose idea was it? Rachel sighed. Daniel. No. I pointed at the document. Whose idea was it? More silence. Then Eric spoke. Mom's. The room exploded. Eric! Mom's face turned crimson. What? You promised? No. Eric snapped. We all promised. Suddenly, years of family politics erupted into the open. And for the first time, everyone stopped pretending. We didn't know what Grandma wanted, Mom said. That's a lie. Her eyes widened. What? You knew exactly what Grandma wanted. Because I did too. Grandma had talked about it often. She wanted fairness, equality. No fighting, no greed. No family tearing itself apart over money. The irony would have made her cry. Rachel stood up. She never intended for you to get everything. I never said she did. Then what's your point? My point is that none of you even asked. The room fell silent again. That was the real betrayal. Not the money, not the house, the exclusion, the assumption, the decision that I didn't deserve a voice. Mom rubbed her temples. We thought you'd make things difficult. The sentence landed harder than she realized, because suddenly everything became clear. Not grief, not confusion, not misunderstanding, convenience. They removed me because I was inconvenient. I was the person who asked questions, the person who read documents, the person who wouldn't blindly agree. And they didn't want that, so they erased me. At least they tried. The conversation lasted 4 hours, and somehow it got worse, much worse, because eventually the truth about Christmas finally emerged, and it was uglier than anything I'd imagined. Rachel confessed first. We planned the sale before Thanksgiving. My stomach dropped. Before Thanksgiving, meaning they had already started excluding me months earlier. Mom nodded. The buyer wanted a quick closing. So you removed me from Christmas? Nobody answered, which was answer enough. Then Eric said something that changed the entire conversation. Mom didn't want you talking to Uncle Robert. I blinked. What? Rachel looked furious. Eric? What? It's true. I turned toward Mom, my heartbeat quickening. Why? Silence. A dangerous silence. Then slowly she answered. Because Robert knew about the deed. The room disappeared. For a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. Uncle Robert knew, which meant someone in the family remembered. Someone knew exactly what Grandma had done, and Mom intentionally kept us apart. A cold sensation spread through my chest. This wasn't a mistake anymore. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't confusion. This was strategy. Deliberate strategy. For months, maybe years. I looked at my mother. Really looked at her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize her. I drove straight to Robert's house. He opened the door before I knocked, almost like he'd been expecting me. He was 72, tall, thin, Grandma's younger brother, and the only relative who'd always treated me like an equal. The moment he saw my face, he sighed. You found out, not a question, a statement. I stepped inside. You knew? Robert nodded. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Pain crossed his face. The genuine kind. Not the fake tears I'd seen from Mom. The real thing. Because your grandmother asked me not to. That stopped me cold. What? He motioned toward the kitchen. We sat. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he reached into a drawer, removed an envelope, yellowed with age, my name written across the front in Grandma's handwriting. My breath caught. She left that with me 12 years ago. I stared at it. Unable to move, she said, you'd know when it was time. My hands trembled as I took it. The seal remained intact, unopened, waiting for 12 years, waiting for me. I carefully broke the seal, pulled out the letter, folded pages, familiar handwriting, and then I started reading. Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. My chest tightened. You are the one person in this family who asks questions before signing papers. A sad smile crossed my face. That sounded exactly like her. The house is not just a building. It is every birthday, every Christmas, every summer afternoon. It is our family's history. I swallowed. Hard. I added your name because I trust your judgment. The words blurred. Not because I wanted you to own everything. Because I wanted someone honest protecting it. I felt tears forming. The first tears since her funeral. One day there may be disagreements. There may be pressure. There may be greed. Then came the sentence that changed everything. If that day ever comes, promise me one thing. Learn the truth before making any decision. Truth. Not money. Not ownership. Truth. Grandma had known. Somehow she'd known. Years before any of this happened. She had seen something coming, and now I needed to understand what. because there was still one question nobody had answered. Why was everyone so desperate to sell the house? Not inherit it, not keep it, sell it quickly, urgently, almost desperately. The answer arrived 2 days later, and it would reveal a secret my family had buried for more than 20 years. A secret hidden inside Grandma's house itself. A secret worth far more than the house, far more than the sale, and once I discovered it, nothing would ever be the same again. For 2 nights, I barely slept. Grandma's letter sat on my kitchen table. I must have read it 50 times. Every sentence felt deliberate. Every word felt chosen. But one line refused to leave my mind. Learn the truth before making any decision. Not make the right decision. Not keep the house. Not sell the house. The truth. Grandma cared about the truth, which meant there was something I still didn't know. Something bigger than ownership, something bigger than money, and somehow everyone else seemed terrified of it. The question was why. I got my answer on a rainy Thursday afternoon. It started with a phone call from Uncle Robert. His voice sounded different, uneasy, almost frightened. "Daniel, what's wrong?" I found something. My stomach tightened. "What?" "A second letter." Silence. Then my chair nearly tipped backward. "A second letter? Your grandmother left several envelopes with me." "Several?" "I only gave you the first one because I thought that was all you'd need." My pulse quickened. What changed? Robert exhaled heavily. "Because after everything that's happened, I think she wanted you to know the rest." An hour later, I was sitting across from him again. The second envelope looked older, more worn, like it had been handled many times, but never opened. Across the front, Grandma had written only 3 words. A chill ran through me. I carefully opened the envelope, pulled out the folded pages, and started reading. "Daniel, if this letter reaches you, then the family has chosen money over memories." My throat tightened. There is something hidden in the house that nobody knows about except Robert and me. I looked up. Robert nodded slowly. "Keep reading." I returned to the letter. 42 years ago, your grandfather and I discovered something inside the walls during a renovation. I frowned. At first, we believed it was worthless. We were wrong. My heartbeat accelerated. The key is beneath the grandfather clock in the library. The lock is behind the fireplace stone in the upstairs study. And what you'll find there belongs to the family. All of the family. I stared at the page, then at Robert. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I whispered, "What is it?" Robert slowly shook his head. "I don't know." "What?" "Your grandparents never told me." The room fell silent, and suddenly I understood why Grandma had written the letter. Because she wasn't protecting property, she was protecting a secret. That evening, I drove to Grandma's house. Legally, I could enter. Legally, it was mine. But as I stood on the front porch, none of that mattered. Because for the first time since her death, I felt her presence. Every creak, every memory, every Christmas, every birthday, every laugh, the house felt frozen in time. I stepped inside. The familiar scent hit immediately. Old wood, books, cinnamon, home. For several moments, I simply stood there, listening, remembering. Then I walked toward the library. The grandfather clock stood exactly where it always had. 6 feet tall, dark oak, ticking steadily. Grandpa had adored that clock. As a child, I wasn't allowed to touch it. Now I understood why. Kneeling beside it, I examined the base. At first, I saw nothing. Then my fingers found a small groove underneath. I pressed. A hidden compartment popped open. My breath caught. Inside sat a small brass key. Exactly where Grandma said it would be, for decades, waiting. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding. The upstairs study had always been Grandpa's favorite room. Nobody used it anymore. Dust covered everything. The fireplace sat against the far wall. Stone from floor to ceiling. I examined it carefully, searching. Finally, I found one loose stone. Near the bottom, hidden. I pulled. The stone slid outward. Behind it sat an old metal lock. The brass key fit perfectly. For one brief moment, I hesitated. Then I turned it. Click. A hidden panel opened inside the wall, and there it was, a wooden chest, old, heavy, beautiful. My hands trembled. I carefully lifted it onto the floor, opened the lid, and froze. Inside weren't jewels, or cash, or gold. It was something far more valuable. Documents. Hundreds of documents. Letters. Photographs. Journals. Records. Decades of family history. And one thick folder labeled. I spent the next 3 hours reading, and by midnight, everything finally made sense. The secret wasn't hidden treasure. The secret was exposure, because buried inside those documents was proof of something my mother had spent 20 years hiding. Proof that could destroy her reputation and explain her desperation to sell the house. The folder contained letters between Grandma and Grandpa. Private correspondence. Painful correspondence. The kind nobody was supposed to see. One letter changed everything. It had been written by Grandpa 23 years earlier and addressed to Grandma. In it, he described discovering financial fraud. Not by a stranger, not by a business partner. By Mom Linda Parker, my mother. According to the records, she had secretly taken money from a family trust established by Grandpa's parents. Money intended for future generations. Money intended for all 3 grandchildren. Me, Rachel, Eric. Over a period of years, hundreds of thousands of dollars had disappeared. Grandpa found out, Grandma found out, and together they forced repayment. Quietly, privately, without involving police, without public scandal, without destroying the family. But they documented everything, every transaction, every admission, every repayment agreement, every signature, including Mom's. I sat staring at the papers, unable to breathe. Suddenly everything clicked. The urgency, the secrecy, the exclusion. Mom didn't just want to sell the house. She wanted everything inside it gone. Before anyone discovered the truth, the next day I called everyone. Mom, Rachel, Eric, Uncle Robert, everyone. I asked them to meet at Grandma's house. Nobody knew why, but they came. By 6 o'clock, the entire family sat inside the living room. The same room where Christmas had happened without me. The same room where secrets had flourished. The same room where those secrets were about to die. Mom looked nervous immediately. Good. She should. I placed the wooden chest on the coffee table. The room fell silent. Rachel frowned. What is that? A family secret. Nobody moved. Then I opened the lid and placed the documents on the table. Mom's face lost all color. Instantly, she knew. The moment she saw the folder, she knew, and for the first time since this began, she looked afraid, truly afraid. Daniel, her voice cracked. Don't. I looked directly into her eyes. Tell them. Nobody understood, except her. Rachel looked confused. Eric looked worried. Melissa looked terrified, but Mom knew, and she started crying. Not fake tears, real ones. Years of buried guilt finally breaking apart. I never meant for any of this to happen. The room froze. Rachel looked between us. What is he talking about? Mom covered her face, and then she told them everything. Every dollar, every lie, every secret, every repayment, every cover-up, every shameful decision. for nearly an hour. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. When she finished, the room felt completely different, like a storm had finally passed. The truth was out at last. Then something happened. Nobody expected. Rachel stood up, slowly, quietly, and walked across the room toward Mom. For a moment, I thought she was going to leave. Instead, she hugged her. The entire room froze, including Mom, including me. Rachel's voice shook. I hate what you did. Mom sobbed. I know. I hate the lies. I know. I hate what this has done to us. I know. Then Rachel said something that changed everything. But I'm tired of losing family. Silence. Heavy silence. Then Eric stood too. Then Melissa. Then Uncle Robert, one by one. Not to excuse what happened. Not to erase it. But to stop the cycle. Because that's what Grandma had wanted all along. Truth first. Then healing. Not pretending. Not forgetting. Healing. 3 months later, the house finally sold. But not in secret. Not through lies. Not through exclusion. The family made the decision together. Every document, every meeting, every signature, together. Exactly as Grandma would have wanted. The proceeds were divided equally. Fairly. No hidden agendas. No manipulation. No betrayal. Just honesty. For the first time in years, the most surprising part, Mom voluntarily gave up her share. Not because anyone demanded it, because she believed it was right. The money was divided among the grandchildren instead. A small act, but a meaningful one. A beginning, not an ending. 1 year later, Christmas returned to Maple Street. Not in the old house. That chapter had ended. Instead, we rented a lodge outside town. Snow covered the trees. Children laughed. Music played, and for the first time in a long time, nobody was hiding anything. Halfway through dinner, Uncle Robert raised a glass. To Eleanor. Everyone smiled. To Grandma. I looked around the table. Mom, Rachel, Eric, their spouses, their children, the family that had nearly destroyed itself, and somehow survived. Not because secrets stayed buried, because they didn't, because the truth finally came out, the same truth Grandma had protected for decades. The same truth, hidden behind a fireplace stone. The same truth that saved us from becoming strangers forever. As snow drifted outside the windows, I realized something. Grandma's greatest gift was never the house, never the money, never the inheritance. It was forcing us to confront the truth before it was too late, because families don't break when the truth is revealed. They break when the truth is hidden, and sometimes the person everyone tries to leave out turns out to be the one person holding the key to bringing everyone back together. Money can divide a family, secrets can poison it, and pride can destroy it. But honesty, no matter how painful, gives people a chance to heal. The truth may hurt for a moment, but a lie can damage generations.